Let's play a game. You're the viewer, and I'm your narrator. Today, I'll tell you the story of how I drove 9 hours through a snowstorm to surprise my wife on her birthday, only to overhear her say she hoped I crashed so she could collect the insurance. Yeah. Let's rewind. I'm 33M, my wife Abigail is 31F. We've been married for 7 years. High school sweethearts. Classic story. We broke up during college, reconnected at a mutual friend's wedding, and that was it. We got back together and eventually married. Or so I thought. Things haven't been great lately. Over the past 6 months, Abigail started pulling away. She spends most of her free time with her sister Mia and this new circle of friends. You know, the kind of people who lease luxury cars and go on tropical getaways they can't afford. Not judging, just noticing. Abigail began, making little comments. Stuff like, "This house feels so starter," or, "When are you going to level up in your career?" I brushed it off, assumed it was just a phase. We live comfortably. Nice 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. 2 decent cars. A vacation every year, nothing over the top, but solid middle-class life. Or so I thought. Last week was her birthday. February birthdays in the Midwest suck. It's always freezing. Plans fall through. Snow ruins everything. So I figured this year I'd do something special. Her actual birthday was on a Tuesday, but she mentioned wanting to visit Mia that weekend. "Spa plans," she said. I told her I couldn't make it. Too much work. That was a lie. I'd already arranged to take Friday off. The plan? Surprise her at Mia's place Friday evening with her favorite cake from this local bakery, take her to a fancy dinner I'd booked weeks ago, and even packed her favorite dress and shoes so she wouldn't need to come home first. Perfect, right? Then Thursday night, the weather reports came in, winter storm warning. 6 to 10 inches of snow across the route I had to drive. Most people would have canceled. I didn't. Call it stubbornness. Call it love. But I'd worked too hard on this surprise. I left at 7 a.m. Friday. What should have been a 6-hour drive turned into 9 hours of white-knuckle misery. I could barely see the taillights ahead of me. 3 accidents shut down the highway. Stopped twice for gas station coffee just to stay awake. But the whole way, I kept thinking about how Abigail's face would light up when I showed up at the door. Totally worth it, I told myself. I pulled into Mia's neighborhood around 4 p.m. Had to park a block away, streets weren't plowed. Grabbed the cake and trudged through ankle-deep snow. My jeans were soaked. Mia's door was unlocked. I could hear voices and laughter from the kitchen. I was about to call out when I heard my name. Abigail. From Noah? Nothing. Radio silence. Mia. Something I couldn't make out. Abigail again, louder. "He texted earlier, said he was stuck at work. He's probably still there." Mia. "In this weather, they'd have sent everyone home. He's probably just at home on the couch with his stupid game again." And then I just froze. It wasn't the usual teasing about my gaming. There was bitterness in her voice. Mia chimed in. "At least he's not here ruining your birthday weekend?" Abigail laughed. "Can you imagine? He'd insist on coming to dinner tonight, tell the same 3 stories he always tells, then get that sad little puppy face when I want to go out tomorrow without him." My stomach twisted. I was still standing in the entryway, soaked jeans, holding a cake in freezing hands, listening to my wife ridicule me. Mia. "Well, at least he's safely out of the way. The roads are awful. My friend's husband was stuck on the highway for 3 hours. Then Abigail said it. Words I'll never forget. "God, I hope he crashes. I could use the insurance." I must have made a noise because everything went silent. Then Mia. Or at least a few months of silence. And they laughed. Actual laughter at the idea of me dead or in a coma. I didn't plan what I did next. I just walked into the kitchen, set the cake box on the counter, and walked out. Their faces, I've never seen color drain that fast in real life. Abigail called my name. I didn't turn around, just kept walking, back through the snow to my car. I sat there for 20 minutes, numb, before I could even put the key in the ignition. My phone lit up. 17 missed calls, 38 unread texts. I read none of them. I drove to the nearest motel. $80 for a room that reeked of cigarettes and desperation. Turned my phone off. Stared at the ceiling until morning. When I powered it back on. 63. Unread texts. Let's pick up where we left off. After driving 9 hours through a blizzard just to hear my wife say she hoped I crashed for the insurance money, I turned around and drove straight back home. Packed 3 suitcases with clothes and essentials while she was still at Mia's. Grabbed my important documents from our fireproof box and went straight to Theo's. That was 3 days ago. I still haven't spoken to Abigail. Not for lack of trying on her end. She's called from a dozen different numbers, left voicemails ranging from tearful to furious. She even showed up at my job yesterday. I wasn't there. I called in sick. Today I went to the bank. Moved half of our joint savings into a new account with only my name on it. Froze our joint credit cards. Changed every password I could think of. Told my boss I'd need to work remotely for a week. Family emergency. It's all been very calculated and organized. Weird, because inside, I feel like I'm in free fall. I keep replaying that moment over and over. I hope he crashes. I could use the insurance. Who says that about someone they claim to love? Who laughs at the thought of their spouse being silent or worse for months? What haunts me even more is the suspicion that this wasn't the first time. It's just the first time I heard it. Now our mutual friends are reaching out. Abigail's spinning a story, calling it a misunderstanding, telling people I'm overreacting. Classic gaslighting. One friend even texted, "Whatever happened, I'm sure you two can work it out." Didn't even ask my side. I haven't told anyone the full story. Not even Theo. He hasn't pressed, just keeps the fridge stocked and gives me space. Last night, I finally opened a few of her texts. They follow a pattern. Confusion. Where? Did you go? Why did you leave? Defensiveness. It was just a joke. You weren't supposed to hear that. Anger. You're being childish. Answer your damn phone. Manipulation. I'm worried about you. Please let me know you're okay. Threats. If you don't call me back, I'm reporting you missing. Self-pity. I can't believe you do this to me on my birthday weekend. But not one real apology. Not once did she acknowledge how messed up what she said was. After reading those, I blocked her number. I'm not ready to talk. Maybe I never will be. Today I met with a financial advisor, a guy named Milton that a coworker recommended. Spent 2 hours going over everything. Turns out Abigail's been spending almost $1,780 a month on online shopping for the past year. She also opened a store credit card I didn't know about. It has a $3,000 balance. Milton helped me set up a plan to separate our finances legally and as painlessly as possible. Nothing shady, just smart steps to protect myself. I left enough in the joint account to cover this month's mortgage and utilities. After that, she's on her own. I'm not trying to ruin her life, but she needs to understand actions have consequences, and yet, there are moments I still wonder if I'm overreacting. Maybe it was just a joke. But then I remember her tone, the coldness, the laughter, and I know I'm not. Theo thinks I should talk to her, just for closure. Maybe he's right, but I'm still in shock. Still trying to figure out who the hell I actually married. Tomorrow will be 4 full days of silence from me. Mia tried calling today. I ignored it. Then our neighbor Lydia texted me. Abigail was crying on the front step because you changed the garage code. Part of me felt guilty. Most of me didn't. What keeps me up at night isn't the insurance comment. It's the laughter, the casual, effortless cruelty. The ease with which they both joked about my death. Who does that? And how long has she felt that way? I've also been thinking about the life insurance policy we took out 3 years ago. It's not massive, $500,000, but enough to make someone say, I hope he crashes. I'm calling the insurance company tomorrow to change the beneficiary. I know this is getting long, but writing it out helps. Theo also hooked me up with a friend who's a divorce lawyer. Meeting him for coffee tomorrow. Not saying that's where this is headed, but I need to know my options. As for what I'm going to do next, honestly, I have no idea. Part of me wants to disappear. New number, new state, clean slate. Another. Part wants confrontation. Wants to look her in the eye, repeat her words, and make her feel 1/10 of what I felt. But mostly, I just want the ache in my chest to stop. I want to sleep without seeing her face. I want to stop hearing her voice and that laugh on loop. For now, I'm just taking it one day at a time, keeping my head down, making plans, letting her wonder where I am, what I know, and what I'm going to do next. If anyone wants updates, I'll share more as things unfold. And if you've made it this far, thanks. Sometimes, the internet is the only place where strangers will actually listen without trying to fix it. Still standing. Still breathing. Noah. So here we are. It's been a week since my last update, and 10 days since I heard the words that keep looping in my head like a cursed TikTok sound. They say anger fades. That's what all the self-help podcasts Theodore's been playing in the kitchen keep saying. Apparently, once the rage burns off, you're left with a clear head to make better decisions. Still waiting on that part. Last. Wednesday, day 4 of silence. I woke up with a plan. Not a good plan, not a healthy one, but a plan that felt right in the moment. At 9:30 a.m., when I was sure Abigail would be at work, I drove home. Our home, with 3 empty suitcases and Theo's pickup truck. Everything looked the same. Coffee mug still on the counter, mail stacked by the door. But it didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt staged, like I'd stepped onto the set of a movie based on my life. I started in the bedroom, packed every piece of clothing I'd bought for myself, left behind anything Abigail had picked. Out. Let them hang there like empty cocoons. Grabbed my grandmother's watch from the dresser, my journals from the bookshelf, the external hard drive with all our photos. Yeah, maybe it was petty, but I paid for it. In the office, I unplugged my gaming setup, left the desk. We bought it together, but took the chair. That was mine. Got it after she complained the old one squeaked too much. Found our marriage certificate in the filing cabinet. Took that too. No real reason. Just felt significant. Then, room by room, I erased myself. My books, my records, my tools from the garage. Even that weird metal sculpture she always hated from that art fair. 4 hours of carefully pulling myself out of a shared life. What I didn't take? Anything we chose together. The couch we spent 3 weekends hunting down. The kitchen table, where we shared countless meals. The bed where we argued, made up, made love. I left all the framed photos right where they were. Something about my smiling face frozen on every wall felt right. A quiet reminder of what she threw away. Before I left, I did 3 things. Turned the thermostat down to 62 degrees. Abigail hated anything below 70. Took the light bulb out of the fridge. A small inconvenience. One she wouldn't notice right away, but it'd bug her every time. Changed the Wi-Fi password to I hope he crashes 2023 and left the router unplugged. Petty? Definitely. But those tiny disruptions? They'll sting before she even begins to understand the real absence. As I locked the front door, our neighbor Lydia came. Out to grab her mail. She looked at Theo's truck full of my stuff, then back at me. Eyebrows raised. I just shrugged and said I was taking some things to donate. She didn't buy it. Her eyes said as much. But she nodded and went back inside. That classic Midwest politeness. Don't ask uncomfortable questions. Mind your business. Usually it annoys me. That day, I appreciated it. Back at Theo's, I stacked everything in his garage, except 2 suitcases I brought into the house. He helped me unload in silence, didn't ask a single question, just handed me a beer and said, "Sometimes life kicks you in the teeth." Thursday was finance day. Met with Milton again. He laid everything out in a spreadsheet that made my stomach flip. Turns out, Abigail had been spending way more than I realized. Not just the store credit card, but cash withdrawals from our joint account. $300 here, $500 there. Over $12,000 in the past year. No receipts, no real explanation. Milton helped me draft a letter formally requesting financial separation. Not divorce, not yet. But a clear legal statement. I will no longer be responsible for any new debts she racks up. We had it couriered to her office. Petty? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. I also canceled all our shared subscriptions, changed the passwords on our cloud storage, redirected my mail to a P.O. box. Small surgical steps to separate our lives. Friday morning, I finally opened social media. 17 Facebook messages, 34 Instagram DMs. Even my dusty Twitter had notifications. People checking in. People picking sides. People who didn't know half the story. I posted one thing, a photo of a half-eaten birthday cake on a kitchen counter. No caption, no context, just the cake. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Texts from friends. Calls from Abigail. 6 of them in 20 minutes. Her best friend Jill messaged me to say Abigail was really worried. I answered none of them. That afternoon, I met with Raone from work. Told him I needed time. He didn't even blink, just asked how long and if I could still handle the Wilson project remotely. I said I could, asked for 2 weeks. He clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Sometimes space is the only way to get clarity." First real advice I've gotten through this whole thing. Then Saturday came, and with it, the first real confrontation. I was standing in the frozen foods aisle, staring at pizzas and trying to remember which brand Theodore liked best, when I heard someone say my name. I turned, and there was Mia, shopping basket in hand. Pale, like she'd seen a ghost. She launched. Right in. Said Abigail was worried sick, that everyone was concerned. Couldn't I please just talk to her? When I didn't say anything, her tone changed. She accused me of being dramatic, said it was just a joke, something sisters say. I was blowing it way out of proportion. That's when I finally spoke. I asked her directly, did she really think wishing death on your spouse for the insurance money was normal? Was that her idea of sisterly humor? Would she want her boyfriend hearing her say something like that? Did she even realize that joke came after months of growing resentment and passive-aggressive digs from Abigail? She didn't answer, just stammered about context and misunderstandings. I put the pizza back, left my half-full cart in the aisle, and walked out. Petty? Sure, but also deeply satisfying. Sunday was quiet. Theodore had a few friends over to watch the game. They could tell something was going on, but no one asked. They just handed me a beer and made room on the couch. For 3 hours, I almost felt normal again. Then Monday hit, and with it, reality. My leave from work officially began. The house Abigail and I shared for 5 years sat half-empty across town, and my phone showed 15 missed calls from her overnight. I finally listened to one voicemail. Her voice sounded different, rough, worn out. She said she hadn't been sleeping. Said the house didn't feel right without me. She'd started noticing more and more of my things were missing, said it was freaking her out. She asked if I was ever coming back, or if I was just ghosting our entire marriage. Ghosting. Like our relationship was a Tinder date that just fizzled out. That word hardened something in me. I texted Theo that I needed to clear my head, then drove to the house. My house. Her house. Our house. I sat outside for almost an hour. Her car wasn't there. The porch light was on, even though it was midday, like she forgot to switch it off. The recycling bin was overflowing with empty wine bottles. I didn't go in, just sat there, wondering how many mortgage payments I had left, whether I should sell and split the money or buy her out, wondering how we'd gone from forever to forensic accounting in 10 days. Tuesday brought a new twist. Got a fraud alert from the credit card company, over $2,000 in purchases, department stores, boutiques, retail therapy, or financial sabotage. Either way, I called and reported the cards stolen. Had a new one sent to my P.O. box. Another bridge burned. That night, I finally posted something more than just a cryptic photo. Still nothing direct about Abigail, just a single line. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same. Vague enough to mean anything, but clear enough for those who knew. Abigail would see it, her friends would, and the story would shift from Noah's losing it to something serious must have happened. Wednesday marked 2 full weeks. 2 weeks since those words in Mia's kitchen. 2 weeks of silence from me. 2 weeks of increasingly desperate attempts from Abigail. I met with a lawyer Theo recommended. A guy named Milton, same name as my financial advisor, which made things mildly confusing. He was calm, steady. Explained that since we didn't have kids, a divorce would be relatively straightforward, but the finances and property could still get messy. He suggested a formal separation agreement first. To give us space, let things breathe. I agreed. He drafted the papers then and there. Said they could be served as early as Friday. The process had officially begun, and it was gaining momentum. Then came Thursday, and with it, everything changed. I was working from Theo's dining table when the doorbell rang. Theo answered it and came back looking uneasy. "It's Abigail," he said. "She's outside. She's crying. She wants to see you." I froze, coffee halfway to my lips. Theo stood there awkwardly. Should I send her away or... Neither answer felt right. I wasn't ready to see her. I wasn't ready for whatever version of the truth she came with. But sending her away felt like feeding her narrative. Proof I was being unreasonable. So I just nodded. Theo let her in. She looked awful, hair unwashed, eyes red and puffy, wearing what looked like the same sweater for days. She stopped in the doorway and just stared at me, like she couldn't believe I was real. I didn't get up, didn't offer her a seat, just waited. She spoke first. "Are you really serving me separation papers?" Apparently, Milton's assistant had called to confirm her address, and she pushed until they told her why. So much for the surprise element. I said, "Yes, I am." She asked why I wouldn't talk to her, why I wouldn't let her explain. Her voice cracked as she spoke, like even forming the words was painful. I told her there was nothing left to explain. I heard what I heard. She insisted it wasn't what I thought. Said she'd been stressed about work and bills. Said Mia brought out the worst in her. Said it was just dark humor after a couple glasses of wine. I asked her if she even remembered what she said, word for word. She hesitated, then claimed she'd. Said, "I wish he'd crash on the couch for a while," and that I must have misheard. Didn't read those either. I texted my buddy Theo. "Something happened with Abigail. Need a place to crash for a few days." Theo, being the MVP he is, just replied, "Doors unlocked, beers in the fridge." That's when I pulled out my phone and hit play. Yep, there was a recording, not because I planned it. I'd been using a voice memo app earlier that day, recording birthday gift ideas on the drive over, trying to come up with something else to get her besides the cake. I'd never stopped the recording. When I got there, total accident or fate. Call it what you want. There it was, her voice crystal clear. "God, I hope he crashes. I could use the insurance." And Mia's response, "Or at least a few months of silence." Then they both laughed. Abigail's face drained of color. She reached for my phone. I pulled it back. She started crying harder, saying it was taken out of context, that she didn't mean it, that she'd never actually hurt me. I asked her just one thing. Would you have told me about that conversation if I hadn't heard it myself? She didn't answer. Didn't have to. Theo had disappeared when she first showed up, but now he walked back in and said awkwardly, "Maybe you two should pick this up another time, cooler heads and all that." Abigail ignored him completely, her eyes locked on me. She started listing everything she'd realized over the past 2 weeks. How much she needed me. How empty the house felt. How she couldn't sleep in our bed alone. Said she never meant to hurt me. Said she'd spend the rest of her life making it right if I'd just come home. It was a masterclass performance. Tears, shaky hands, voice cracking in all the right places. 2 weeks ago, I might have fallen for it, might have believed her, but something in me had shifted. 14 days of silence gives you a lot of time to think, not just about what she said, but why she said it. That kind of contempt doesn't show up out of nowhere. It builds slowly, quietly, and the kind of person who can joke about you dying and laugh about it, that's not the person I thought I married. So I told her the truth. I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. This separation wasn't about punishing her. It was about protecting myself while I figured out if there was anything left to salvage. She didn't take that well. Started accusing me of throwing away 7 years over one stupid comment. That people say dumb things when they're venting? That I was being cruel for shutting her out like this. I just sat there, let her words hit and slide off. None of them stuck. When she finally ran out of steam, I told her the papers would be delivered tomorrow. She should read them carefully before deciding her next move. She left crying, mascara streaked down her face. Theo came back in with 2 beers and said, "That was the most uncomfortable thing I've seen since my parents' divorce." Dark humor, but I appreciated the effort. That night I couldn't sleep. Just kept replaying her face when the recording played. Shock, panic, but not real remorse. Just fear of consequences. Friday morning, the papers were delivered. By that afternoon, Abigail's sister was posting cryptic social media rants about men who overreact and wreck marriages over misunderstandings. Funny how family closes ranks, even when they know the truth. But something unexpected happened too. Abigail's best friend Jill messaged me, just a simple text. Said she'd heard the whole story now, including what Abigail actually said. Said she was sorry I was going through this, mentioned she'd known Abigail since college, said she'd heard her make cutting remarks before about others, tried to call her out for it in the past, but Abigail always shut her down. It was the first message I'd gotten from anyone in Abigail's circle that acknowledged what I was feeling. Didn't try to downplay it or justify it. I didn't respond, but it stuck with me. Maybe it wasn't just one slip-up. Maybe that comment wasn't a fluke, but a glimpse of who she really is. Maybe I'd been missing red flags for years. The weekend came and went, quietly. Theo had a date, so I had the house to myself. Ordered pizza, watched a sci-fi series Abigail had always refused to sit through. Tried not to think about how, in another version of life, we'd be at home right now, sharing that pizza and laughing through our monthly movie night tradition. Sunday night, Abigail texted me. 2 words. "I'm sorry." 17 days. And that was the first real apology. No excuses, no explanations, just those 2 words. I didn't reply, but I stared at the screen longer than I'd like to admit. Monday morning, day 18. I woke up to see Abigail parked outside Theo's house, just sitting in her car, watching the front door. Theo spotted her first through the kitchen window. I called her, asked what she was doing. She said she just needed to see me. to know I was okay. Said she wouldn't come to the door or cause a scene. Just needed to see me. It was concerning, but also strangely sincere. I told her to go home. Said this wasn't helping either. Of us. She asked if I read her message. I said yes. Then she asked, "Do you believe I'm sorry?" I paused, told her the truth. I don't know. Then came the question I'd been dreading. Are you filing for divorce? I told her the truth again. I haven't decided yet. She sat in her car for another hour, then finally drove away. Theo suggested changing the locks, just in case. I agreed. We spent the afternoon installing new deadbolts. Another thread cut. Another part of our life severed. Today makes 3 weeks since that night in Mia's kitchen. 3 weeks of quiet. 3 weeks of trying to piece together the wreckage of a marriage I thought was solid. I'm not sleeping much. And I miss the dumb things. How Abigail always bought the expensive coffee I liked, even when it wasn't on sale. How she'd sing terribly in the shower every morning. Her ridiculous collection of fuzzy socks that always ended up on my side of the bed. I don't miss the simmering resentment I now realize had been growing for months. Don't miss tiptoeing around her moods. Don't miss the little jabs I used to brush off as just her humor. The separation papers are signed and filed. My lawyer says we're officially in the legal separation period. 6 months where we're still married on paper but living apart, with finances officially split. At the end of those 6 months, we either reconcile or move forward with divorce. 3 weeks ago, I'd have said there was 0 chance of reconciliation. Now, I'm not so sure. Not because I've forgiven her, but because untangling a 7-year marriage is messy. Homes, bank accounts, friend groups, family. It's all more intertwined than I ever realized. As I'm typing this, my phone lights up. Another message from Abigail. Can we meet? Neutral location. Just to talk, please. I don't know what I'll say. Part of me wants to hear her out. Part of me thinks it's just dragging things out. Most of me? I'm just tired. But if I'm being honest, I'll probably go. If only to finally say to her face all the things I've been typing. To strangers online. I'll update if anything significant happens. And thanks, seriously, for all the advice on the last post. Even the bizarre suggestions involving glitter and her shampoo. Some of y'all need therapy, but I feel seen. Still standing. Still breathing. Noah final update. It's been exactly 25 days since I left that cake on the counter. 25 days of silence, separation, and more adulting than I ever wanted to deal with. This'll probably be my last post. Because honestly, how many ways can you dissect a dead marriage before even the internet gets bored? First, thanks for all the comments and DMs. Yes, even the weird ones. No, I did not follow the advice about putting fish in her air vents. Y'all are unhinged in a weirdly comforting way. Now the coffee shop meeting. I got there 15 minutes early. Anxiety makes me extra punctual. Downtown Groundwork Coffee, 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Busy enough for background noise, but not so packed we'd be overheard. I grabbed a corner table, ordered a black coffee I didn't even want, and waited. Abigail walked in right on time. Not 5 minutes late like usual. Hairstyled, light makeup. Wearing the blue sweater I gave her last Christmas. All intentional choices. I'm sure of it. First thing she said wasn't hello. It was, I've lost 7 pounds since you left. Just dropped that like it was supposed to impress me. Stress. Weight loss as some kind of emotional currency. Classic Abigail. I didn't acknowledge it. Just asked why she wanted to meet. That's when she pulled out notes, handwritten, on an actual yellow legal pad. I nearly laughed. This woman who'd rather argue for 20 minutes than write a grocery list had bullet-pointed her feelings. First point, she was sorry. truly sorry for what she'd said. Called it cruel, thoughtless, and not what she meant. She'd been drinking with Mia all afternoon, was annoyed I wasn't there for her birthday weekend, or so she thought. Said the words just came out. I asked her why she laughed after saying it. She flinched, said it was nervous laughter, said Mia brings out her worst side, said it was a dumb attempt to sound edgy in front of her sister. Second point, she admitted she took our relationship for granted. Got too comfortable with the stability I provided, stopped seeing the things I did, and only focused on what I didn't. Third, a point. The last 3 weeks had been a wake-up call. Said she realized how much she leaned on me, not just financially, though that too, she admitted, but emotionally. Said the house was too quiet, that she'd started talking to herself just to hear a voice. Fourth point, she wanted us to try couples therapy. Had already found someone who specializes in rebuilding trust. Had even booked an appointment. Asked if I'd please consider going. Through all of this, I just sat there, sipping cold coffee, watching her, looking for any trace of the woman who'd laughed at the thought of me being dead. Was it all an act? Was she actually remorseful? I still couldn't tell. When she finished her speech, she set the pad down and looked me in the eye. Asked what I was thinking. I told her I was thinking about parallel universes. How, in one version of reality, I never drove through that snowstorm, never heard that recording, would still be living side by side with someone who could joke about my death and laugh. She started crying, not loud, dramatic sobs like before, but quiet tears. She kept dabbing them away with a napkin like they were just an inconvenience. Then I laid out my terms, not open to discussion, not a negotiation, just facts. The separation would continue. For the full 6 months. I made it clear I wouldn't be moving back in, not during the separation. I wasn't shutting the door, on reconciliation entirely. But I also wasn't ready to say yes to couples therapy. I needed space. I needed time. She nodded through all of it, like each sentence was a hit she was bracing herself for. When I finished, she just asked, "Do you hate me?" The weirdest part? I didn't. Still don't. There's anger. There's disappointment. There's pain. But not hate. I told her that. She looked genuinely surprised, said she'd been convincing herself I must hate her, that it was the only way to make sense of how completely I'd shut her out. Said it was almost worse that I didn't, because it meant I didn't care enough to feel anything that deep anymore. That stung, because honestly, it wasn't entirely wrong. The conversation tapered off after that. We agreed to keep communication limited to email, strictly practical stuff, bills, the house, logistics. She'd keep covering the mortgage, her name's on the deed too. I'd keep paying half the utilities. We'd check in again at the 3-month mark. As we stood up, she hesitated, then asked if she could hug me. I said no. She nodded like she already knew the answer, picked up her things, and walked out. I sat there for another 30 minutes, trying to process how surreal it all felt. Having such a clinical, business-like conversation with someone who's held your head over the toilet when you had food poisoning, who's ugly cried in your arms, who knows every embarrassing story from your childhood. 7 years, boiled down to bullet points on a yellow notepad. Life kept moving in this weird, quiet way. I extended my remote work arrangement through the end of the month. Theodore's spare room started feeling less like a guest room and more like home. Bought a decent mattress topper, hung up a few pictures, created a routine, morning runs, work, gym 3 days a week, dinner with Theodore when our schedules lined up. The silence strategy seemed to be working in unexpected ways. With less contact from me, Abigail actually seemed to be doing some reflecting. A week after the coffee shop meetup, I got a message from Mia, her sister. It was surprisingly humble. She admitted she'd been a bad influence on Abigail, encouraging that brutal honesty that really just meant being mean. Said she was disgusted with herself for laughing that day, didn't ask for forgiveness, just wanted me to know she saw her part in all of it. I didn't respond, but I did screenshot it, not to use as leverage, just to remind myself I wasn't crazy for feeling betrayed. The financial pressure started catching up faster than I expected. Jill, one of Abigail's friends, reached out again, said Abigail was struggling to keep up with her lifestyle on just her income, had to cancel her monthly spa membership, was thinking about getting a roommate, but didn't want to actually move anyone in because she's still hoping you'll come back. Classic guilt trip tactic, delivered through a friend. I didn't bite. Just thanked Jill for the update and said Abigail could reach out to my lawyer if she wanted to discuss financial matters. Around day 30, Abigail's tone shifted. Her emails got less emotional, more practical. She started selling off expensive clothes and handbags on resale sites. Sold her second car, the flashy convertible she insisted on last summer. Even mentioned she was thinking about taking classes to boost her earning power. It was like watching someone fast forward through a maturity montage. Weirdly, I felt proud, but I wasn't about to step in and rescue her. Day 35 brought a curveball. Checked my P.O. box and found a thick envelope from Abigail. Inside, a 10-page handwritten letter, both sides, and a USB drive. The letter was basically a timeline of our relationship, from her point of view. The big milestones, the lake proposal, our first big fight over her spending, the miscarriage in year 3 that we never really addressed, and the slow evolution of how she saw me. First as a partner, then a provider, then an obstacle. It was brutally honest in a way she'd never been face to face. She admitted she'd resented how content I was with our life, that she'd compare us to her friends, even though she knew they were drowning in debt. Admitted to flirting with her coworker Jason last year, swore it never got physical. The USB? Audio recordings of her therapy sessions. She said her therapist had given permission. I only listened to one. That was enough. Hearing her break down our marriage to a stranger. Hearing the confusion in her voice as she tried to explain why she joked about the insurance money. It was too much. Too raw. I deleted the files. Put the letter in my document box. Not sure if I'll ever read it again. But throwing it away felt wrong. Day 40 came with another surprise. Ran into our neighbor Lydia at the hardware store. She casually mentioned Abigail had been hosting weekly get-togethers at the house. Not parties, meetings. Said there were always 6 or 7 cars parked out front on Wednesday nights. Curiosity won out. That Wednesday, I parked a few houses down and watched. 7 women showed up between 6 and 6:30, all around Abigail's age. A few I recognized, some were strangers. I didn't approach. That would have been weird, but I did. Text Jill and asked what Abigail was up to. She replied, Abigail had started a women's accountability group, focused on financial literacy and breaking toxic relationship patterns. Not what I expected. Around day 45, the social media vibe changed. Mia, who'd been completely silent about everything until now, posted a long status about supporting my sister through her awakening and helping her recognize destructive patterns. She tagged Abigail. Abigail replied with a simple, "Love you, but this journey is mine to share when I'm ready." That statement sparked curiosity among our mutual friends. Suddenly, people who had been giving me space started reaching out, asking what was going on. The rumor mill went wild. Someone said Abigail was in rehab. She wasn't. Someone else claimed I'd emptied our bank accounts, leaving her broke. Also untrue. Another person said our marriage had been falling, apart for years, and the separation was mutual. That was partially true, I guess. But I stayed silent. Let them wonder. Day 50. A significant day. For the first time since leaving, I went back to the house. Abigail was home. I needed to grab my winter gear from the garage. Minnesota spring? more like a cruel joke. We got 6 inches of snow overnight. I texted her first, just to check if it was okay. She replied quickly, "Of course, I'll be home all day working on a project." Pulling into the driveway felt surreal. The lawn needed mowing. The flower beds were overgrown, small signs of my absence. Abigail met me at the door but didn't linger. She just said I could take all the time I needed and then headed to the kitchen. I could hear her painting something. The house felt different. It smelled different too. Less like my laundry detergent. More like that essential oil diffuser she'd always wanted to use, but I hated. I noticed photos had been rearranged. Some furniture had been moved. Not drastically, just enough for me to notice. In the garage, my winter clothes were neatly boxed and labeled. Not hastily thrown together, but packed with care. She'd even included things I'd forgotten about. My favorite scarf. The expensive gloves my mom gave me last Christmas. As I loaded the boxes into my car, Abigail came out with a mug of coffee and asked if I wanted to see what she was working on. No pressure, just an offer. Curiosity won out, so I followed her to the kitchen. She'd set up a small art studio. She was painting wooden signs with inspirational quotes, the kind of things she used to mock people for buying at Target. She seemed a little embarrassed, explaining that it was therapeutic and that she'd even sold a few at the local farmer's market. We talked for maybe 15 minutes, just surface-level stuff, the weather, her parents' anniversary, the water heater still knocking, normal conversation between two people who used to share everything. Before I left, she said something that stuck with me. She said she'd been reading about grief and realized she was grieving our marriage, while also hoping to save it. And those two things were contradicting each other in her head. I nodded and told her I understood, because I felt that same contradiction. It was the most honest conversation we'd had in years. Day 60. Financial clarity came with a meeting with Milton, the financial advisor, not the lawyer, still confusing. Milton confirmed that Abigail had been sticking to our agreement. No new joint debt, regular payments on her credit cards. She'd even paid off a store card I didn't know about. Milton suggested it might be time to discuss more permanent financial arrangements depending on where I stood about reconciliation. I realized I hadn't really thought about that choice in weeks. I'd been so focused on keeping boundaries that I'd avoided the bigger question. So I did what anyone would do. I made a list. Pro and con. Like deciding between 2 cars or job offers. But this wasn't about cars. It was about whether to salvage a 7-year marriage or walk away permanently. The list didn't help. Some things can't be quantified. Day 70. Theodore dropped a bomb. He was seeing someone seriously. They were already talking about moving in together, not right away, but in a few months. He reassured me that I could stay as long as I needed, but the subtext was clear. It was time to figure out something more permanent. That weekend, I toured 3 apartments and signed a 6-month lease on the second one. It was a 1-bedroom, walkable to downtown, decent kitchen. A fresh start. I emailed Abigail to let her know. She responded with a simple line. "I understand, but the door here remains open." Day 75, moving day. Theodore helped, along with 2 other friends. 4 hours of hauling boxes and furniture up 3 flights of stairs because the elevator was broken. We ordered pizza and beer afterward and christened the new place with a makeshift living room picnic since I hadn't bought a dining table. Yet. That night, alone in my new apartment, I finally opened the folder of photos from my external hard drive. 7 years of memories, vacations, holidays, random moments. Abigail laughing at something off camera. Abigail sleeping, mouth slightly open. Abigail in the early days, looking at me like I hung the moon. Day 80, I received an email from Abigail asking if we could meet again. She wanted to talk about what would happen after our 6-month separation ended. 3 months away, but she wanted to be prepared for whatever outcome. We met at a new coffee shop, more neutral ground. She looked good, healthy. Her hair was cut to shoulder length, minimal makeup, simple clothes, jeans, sweater, boots. The designer purse was gone, replaced by a canvas tote. The conversation was direct. She asked if I was leaning toward reconciliation or divorce. I told her honestly that I hadn't decided yet. She asked what I wanted. She said she wanted to try again, but only if I could truly forgive her, not just say the words while holding on to resentment. She claimed she'd changed in the last 11 weeks, still changing, and wanted the chance to show me that person instead of just talking about it. I told her I believed she'd changed. I'd changed too. But I wasn't sure if the new versions of us were still compatible or if we'd grown apart. She nodded. "That's fair," she said. Then she handed me a sealed envelope. She said it contained her proposed terms for either outcome, reconciliation or divorce. She asked me to read it when I was ready and let her know my thoughts. I didn't open it for 3 days. When I finally did, it was the most mature, reasonable thing I could have imagined from someone fighting for their marriage while also preparing for its end. For reconciliation, 6 months of couples therapy before we even considered living together. Full financial transparency from both of us. Regular check-ins about the relationship. Annual State of the Union discussions about our goals and progress. For divorce, a fair division of assets based on contribution, not a strict 50-50 split. She'd buy me out of the house at market value. No alimony in either direction. A clean break with minimal lawyer involvement, if possible. It was clear-headed, practical, and completely different from the Abigail who had wished me dead over insurance money just 3 months ago. I emailed her back, saying both sets of terms seemed reasonable. I asked for more time to make my decision. She replied with a simple, "Take all the time you need." Day 90. Today marks 3 months. 3 months since I heard those words in Mia's kitchen. 3 months of silence, separation, reflection, and growth. I've been thinking a lot about cakes lately. The one I left on Mia's counter, the birthday it was meant to celebrate, the moment everything changed. This afternoon, I went to the same bakery, bought the same cake, drove it to my new apartment, set it on my new counter. Then I took a photo and texted it to Abigail, the first direct text I'd sent her in 90 days. She called right away. I let it go to voicemail. Then I cut a slice of cake, sat on my secondhand couch, and listened to her message. She didn't beg. She didn't make assumptions. She just said she understood the symbolism, that she would accept whatever I decided. She said she was proud of how I'd handled myself, with dignity instead of destruction. She apologized again, not expecting forgiveness, but offering the apology anyway. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with the lawyer. Not to file for divorce, not yet, but to discuss the next steps of either path. To understand what reconciliation would really look like after something like this. To know exactly what I'm choosing. Tonight I'll finish this cake alone. Not out of sadness, but because some journeys need to be walked solo. I don't know if Abigail and I will ever find our way back. But I do know this. I'm figuring out what comes next. I don't know if Abigail and I will have a future together. The wound she caused was deep. The trust she broke won't be easy to rebuild. But what I do know is that whatever decision I make moving forward, it will come from a place of strength, not fear, from clarity, not confusion. Those words at Mia's kitchen table, yes, they exposed something ugly. But maybe they also revealed something necessary. Maybe we needed to completely fall apart to understand what we were really made of. Or maybe some things, once broken, should stay broken. Either way, I'm at peace with the process. The man who left that cake on Mia's counter 90 days ago would have done anything to make Abigail happy. But the man writing this now knows his worth. I'll update one last time once I've made my final decision. But for now, I'm signing off. Thanks for being part of this journey with me, even if you're just internet strangers. Your advice, support, and yes, even the wild revenge suggestions have been an unexpected form of therapy. Still standing. Still breathing. Stronger than before. Noah.